Hello people, how's everyone doing? Now, as you can guess by the title of this video, this is my final report. We've came a long way, and it's been also a very short journey, but a very meaningful one. In this report, I'm going to show you some of the experiences that I had, some of the reflection that I have from them, some information related on the references that I use throughout the course. And well, I wanted to make this final report as a video. We have many options. In fact, we were the ones who decided what to do. I decided to use a video, but also a more organized one. So I'm using this presentation and I hope you like it. So let's go. The results and impact of the process so far. So as you've seen in my previous phase, the way I presented everything was I showed the lesson, and after that I showed my reflection, and after that I showed my report. I'm very happy to say that the type of mediation that I'm doing has been very successful. I've seen changes across the interaction that I have with my students. It seems more genuine. They seem more interested in the lesson, and I've seen more inspiration, more engagement also. And well, I also want to talk about the principles that I use because I feel like these three have been very important in the designing, in the implementation, and then the reflection of this impact of the process that I've come so far. So I've been making the lesson meaningful for your student, nurturing the sense that your student can and has the possibility of developing their own competences and abilities. And as well, how can I do to bring this topic outside the realm of the class? Those three I've been using uh, extensively, and they've shown very, very good results. Um, the first most apparent result is that I've seen comprehension has increased. In the past, I also had some trouble transmitting the idea that, hey, I'm teaching you Spanish, but you need to practice this outside this lesson. If you don't do that, it's going to be very difficult for you to start speaking Spanish. I've seen that with mediation, we've solved in a big way that part. And yeah, that's gonna be pretty much it in the result of the impact of the process so far. It's important to say that this is just the beginning. I'm using this approach to the pedagogy. I've been using it for about 3 weeks, so we are still in the beginning of the journey, but it's been very helpful. And in terms of relationships, we created better relationships between me, who's given the lesson, designing the experiences. And okay, I also want to talk about something, and is that in the past I had the vision that I was responsible to make the lessons work. But in mediation, I've seen that most of my most important job comes from the designing of the experiences. Um, so there's that. Let's continue. The most meaningful changes in your pedagogical practices. Now, the most meaningful change that I've seen is humanizing the experience. It's being curious about who your learner is, um, knowing that He is not here just to learn Spanish, just to learn uh, what's the adjective, what's the verb, how to do a tense, and so on. It is being cognizant that this person that you have right here has motivations, has problems, has desires, goals, and so on. So this been a huge change for me. It's the realization, the perspective that you have on the class right now becomes um, more eclectic. Then you're not just thinking about this is the lesson, this is the practice, this is going to be the assessment. You're now thinking about this lesson might prove very useful for you because you're going to be able to reflect on something that you didn't had the chance in the past. One example of this was when I did the A1 Spanish lesson on professions. I thought about knowing about the job that my learner had and then ask him, hey, do you feel happy with the job that you have? Was this your dream job when you were a kid? And they were not expecting that. It took them a while to answer, and for some cases they were like hesitant to answer, "Oh, okay, yeah, this is my dream job." So it is bringing the topic, but going beyond, and that's been a huge change um, in my pedagogical practices. The main reflections derive from the implementation of your proposal and the bibliographic references for the course. So let us start by addressing the beginning of this question. The main reflection that I got is humanizing the experience once again. And is that when you are teaching, you are simply bringing the learning outcome that you want to transfer into your learner as a way to just meeting that goal. And in pedagogical mediation, there's that too. We have learning outcomes to achieve, but you're not just thinking about that. You're thinking about how could you make this learning outcome apparent but also meaningful to your learner. That's a huge one, and it has become a huge one for me. On a secondary aspect, I know that I made my work more complex. I had to deal more with creativity. Um, I spend more time designing the experiences. I have to inquire more about my learners. What do they do? What do they like? What don't they like? And so on. So it's also not learning on how do you become a better pedagogical mediator, but how could you know better about your learners? And that's the second point that I wanted to talk about. Now, on regards to the bibliographic references for the course, there was one made by Rule. It was a YouTube video, and I found that to be exceptional. I That really resonated with me because he was talking about people love choosing, and when you uh, apply that into your class, they're gonna show more inspiration, more creativity, more engagement, and so on. So I've been applying that. That was incredible. Then there was Tevar, which was also very useful for me. And well, he didn't address so much the topic on languages, but I like how he talks about that you need to show that the learner has the capability and the possibility of improving their own competences. So in a way, your role as a teacher is not to take a step further and go into the learning process, but take a step back and let your learner know that he has the potential to become independent. That was also very important. And in the case of Richards and Rogers, they talk more about languages, and they talk about the we had an era of methods where the idea was to perfect that method. How can I become a better teacher in TPRS and the communicative learning approach and so on? But now we deal with something called the post-methods era, and it's exactly the pedagogical mediation approach. And is that you're not now thinking about methodologies, techniques, or approaches, but now you are thinking about all methods at the same time, but being useful to your learner. So those are the main reflections that I had on the course so far. The main difficulties you went through and how you overcome them. The main difficulty that I found was that I spent more time. I've talked about this, I know, in the previous slides, but that was a huge one for me because I am working, I'm studying, and I kind of in the past came into terms with this relationship of working and studying, and so I found myself in an equilibrium. Now that I brought the pedagogical mediation discussion into my practice, it's like, I'm once again not very well balanced. That's difficulty that I have not overcome, but I'm still there, and I guess it's gonna uh, be solved with more experience, and every day I apply some of these pedagogical mediation aspects that I've learned in the course. And there was a second one, and is that in the videos that I've shown, most of my learners didn't want to show themselves. I asked them, hey, you know that I'm studying my master's, so would it be possible for you and acceptable if this time I record our session? They were like, okay, is is it necessary that I show myself in the camera? And they asked me many questions. Uh, do these people that are going to see me, they are gonna see myself and they are gonna judge how I speak Spanish? And that created a lot of stress. We did overcome that, however, because I said, look, no, this is, you can be whoever you want. You don't have to show yourself in the camera, and people are not going to assess you. They're going to assess me and this lesson, the way I brought this lesson for you. So don't worry about that. I said that it didn't work. It made the lesson quite uncomfortable. However, it was, I can say they were satisfied by the activities that I proposed that were engaging, inspiringful, and so on. So we addressed that, and yeah, I don't think there are more difficulties that I addressed. Conclusions and recommendations. The way I want to conclude this report is by addressing again the importance of knowing that your learner is just not here just learning English or Spanish. He is here because he is bringing a relationship into that desire to learn something that translates very, very deeply into their personal lives. And this is the case of why you have to think about making something meaningful and when you design the experiences. Look at yourself 10 years ago, 20 years ago when you were in high school or middle school. Try to remember what were those lessons that really stick with you, that you still remember up until this day. And think about why do you still remember about that until this day? It was because they resonated with you. They made you see the word in a different way. And this is something that we as teachers have to still think about and try to do as many times as we can. Of course, there are some principles to achieve this, and is one of the most important is learning about your learner, being genuinely interested about your learners, knowing their desires, who they live with, and so on. So that will be my conclusions and recommendations. Self-evaluation related to the resignification of your pedagogical practices during the process. So I wrote this about this before, and is that I feel like before this pedagogical mediation word, I feel like I was living and I had a very tunnel perspective into you have to be a good teacher, you are in charge of uh, meeting your learning outcomes and so on. With pedagogical mediation, now my vision is not so tunneled, but it has spanned and it has shown me a very different world, which I really appreciate. And is that, well, the first one is how can you make things meaningful to your learner and have an impact on their lives? Um, that has totally resignified my practices and the philosophies, the ideas that I have on education. I've seen and I feel like I've had a complete resignification that I'm still willing to improve. Of course, we're still at the beginning of the journey, and I'm very open to learn about all that's going to improve this pedagogical mediation approach. These are the references that I've talked up until now, and I as well want to say that these are the references that really had an impact on me and that they presented a resignification in my pedagogical practices. All right, now with this we can conclude this session. I hope you like it. I hope I was able to transmit all things that I wanted to say and that you've seen how happy I am in regards to all the experiences that I have. I really appreciate how innovative were these guides. It's not very much like we used it in the past. So there's that then. Well, I hope we see each other in the next one. Bye bye and take care.